I guess just give us your takeaway of what today's testimony was about.
Today's testimony was basically about how common AR-type rifles, semi-automatics, the over 15-round magazines are. Today's primary witness was a former engineer from Remington who has several decades experience in the firearm industry, testified again how common AR-type platforms are, the difference between semi-automatic and fully automatic AR-15s and M16s, and just tried to address the concerns the Seventh Circuit seemed to have in the Beavis opinion, while we strict to trying to comply with that and making our case under Bruin.
And it seemed that there was a lot of questions about, military grade versus civilian, commercially available firearms. Can you kind of elaborate on the impact of that testimony?
Sure. The whole point of that was to address the Seventh Circuit's decision in Beavis, where it made reference to exclusively military firearms. The impact and point of all that is to show that the AR-15 and its related semi-automatic firearms are dual-use firearms, potentially useful for self-defense, collection, sporting purposes. They are, in fact, the Brown Bess or the Kentucky long rifle of today.
How do you think the defense did with their cross-examination?
I'm not sure the defense understood what a trigger pull was, but overall, with what they've got, I think they did as well as they could.
Do you think it'll have impact on the overall case, some of the distinctions they were able to draw on?
No. Well, their impeachment today was pretty weak, and like I said, I think it belied their lack of understanding of the technical features, and they're, of course, limited by what the Supreme Court said in Bruin, what the law actually is.
There was a conversation about modification of AR-15s and people who may want to modify those to be fully auto.
Sure.
If you could talk about how the witness discussed that, and do you think he addressed that?
The witness explained correctly that there is a distinction in the AR-15 and the M16 lower receivers and internal parts. You cannot simply put fully automatic parts in a run-of-the-mill semi-automatic AR-15. It requires, frankly, a master gunsmith, industrial equipment like a milling machine, and still have access to the parts and still have access to know what the specifications really are. It is not something that, frankly, you probably find any law enforcement officers that have ever actually seen outside of the ATF.
A lot of reports were brought up. The ATF report on the numbers of manufactured rifles, for instance. Was that a way to try to elucidate the proliferation, so to speak, of these types of firearms?
Again, that goes to commonality. Manufacturers and importers in the United States, firearm manufacturers, are required to report yearly the number of firearms of various types that they manufacture. And those if you know that the company only manufactures one type of rifle.
Mr. Ronkainen, would you be available? No. Okay, understood. Thank you.
If you know that the manufacturer only manufactures one type of rifle, then you know that they've made, for instance, 200,000 AR-15 type rifles in a given year.
One of the questions that was brought up from the defense was, there's no way to delineate if there's law enforcement that are getting these, or if they're civilians getting these. Is that a good distinction to make clear here?
Well, as the witness enunciated, if law enforcement are buying all of these firearms, there would be no room in their police stations or their cars to store them all.
I also was wondering about the defense asked about, you can't really ever know how many people are purchasing these firearms. It just these ATF reports just show how many were manufactured. I guess in proving the common use argument, how effective do you think that is? And
well, I mean, clearly there are some people who are buying more than one of these. But, I mean, there's not people buying 10,000 of them apiece. And the evidence shows that there are millions upon millions of these in the United States. In the Centano case, the Supreme Court dealing with stun guns elicited that 200,000 shows common use. I think we've easily shown well over 200,000.
And how important is the common use argument going to be for you guys, just moving forward?
Well, that appears to be the traditional standard, is that the Second Amendment protects firearms in common use at the time. Well, if the AR-15 is literally the most popular firearm probably ever in the United States, it's clearly in common use. As one commentator noted, there are more AR-15s than there are F-150s on the road.
And how about proving that even though that it is in common use, that people are using this for self-defense in the home?
Well, the standard is not simply self-defense, but for lawful purposes, such as self-defense. And, I mean, it's, as the witness elicited, there's the national matches at Camp Perry that use these types of firearms for target practice. There are 3-gun matches. People are not buying these guns simply to stick them in closets.
Back to the modifications. Is that common, do you think? I mean, in your own experience as somebody who works kind of in this space of, you know, Second Amendment litigation and whatnot, is it common that people are out there modifying their semi-automatics to make them fully automatic?
I've never actually seen one in the wild. So
I guess, you know, here we are. It's been almost 2 years now this has been enacted. We went through the preliminary stage last year. We're now at the merits stage. How quick do you think this will get resolved?
the parties have an agreement that more or less says that we're to file our paperwork within 30 days after the evidence is presented. I would anticipate that shortly after that, Judge McGlynn will issue his order.
And then how quick do you think the appeals court's going to pick it up?
Within about 20 minutes after his decision, one way or the other.
Do you have concerns that, come October, the ISP is going to be possibly modifying the list of firearms regulated under PICA?
That may lead to another lawsuit.